Tonight on America's Hope, we'll hear from Pastor Stephen Khoury, a man of courage and conviction. He's a Christian Arab pastor living in Israel. His story and more. America's Hope starts right now. From the NTD Global Headquarters in New York, I'm Kelly Wright, and this is America's Hope. Good evening. Thanks for joining us this hour. Again, we are talking about what's unfolding between Israel and Hamas. Israeli forces going into Rafah. Hostages still being held captive by Hamas terrorists. And then on our college campuses, we're still seeing an eruption of anti-Israel protests. So what's going on in Israel right now? How are people getting along? How are they dealing with this crisis that they're facing that some would say poses an existential threat to Jewish people, to the Jewish state? And how should Americans care? Why should they care? Well, our next guest tonight is a pastor, a Christian Arab pastor, a Palestinian, who grew up in Bethlehem and lived in Jerusalem. It's an amazing story of how his faith has propelled him to stand in the midst of fear and exercise faith over that fear to help people come together. And then tonight we're going to hear from Isik Abla. She grew up in a Muslim household in Turkey. We'll hear what her experience was like growing up there. And then Lana Silk, who will talk about her organization called Transform Iran. And she would tell us her remarkable story of growing up during the initial reign of the Ayatollah. All that and more right here. Let's get started with Pastor Stephen Khoury.
My name is Pastor Stephen Khoury. I was born in Jerusalem and grew up in the birth city of Christ, the city of Bethlehem.
And what do you do now here in the region in terms of helping people spiritually and emotionally with what they're confronted with almost on a day in, day out basis, and that's perhaps dissension, division, and now, because of October 7th, fear?
When October 7th happened, the war started, innocent lives were lost. It was natural for us to continue doing what we do, but now it's almost was magnified to almost 100% bigger because we're preaching love and forgiveness and grace as a Christian message, non-political message. Our message about love, forgiveness. Christ says to love your neighbor as yourself, to love your enemies, love those who persecute you, and so forth. So it was natural, but it was unnatural as well, because constantly, Kelly, in Israel and the Palestinian mainframe. I mean, I was here all my life, grew up here till today, minus a few years going to Bible college. This has been all of what I've known growing up. So I've seen bloodshed, body parts growing up, going to school and the bus stops. It's been a part of my reality. But October 7th is different. It hit home for a lot of people. It was a dividing line between friends who are Jewish and Arab friends who grew up together, who go to school together, or who live to go work together. Majority of Arabs and Jews here work together, not necessarily live together. The tension was different. So we saw it take into action where Christians either went in a closet and hid because they're afraid to speak out, or Christians became more aggressive in preaching and teaching the message of love, forgiveness, and grace.
So the kind of response that you've given, which is an outpouring of love and acceptance of Jewish people and standing with the Jewish people who have been so shattered by this event. And it's not even an event, it's an atrocity to take away life and then to take people away and hold them hostage. They're not prisoners of war, they're hostages. And the sheer barbarism that was inflicted upon Israel that day. What's your message to the Jewish people that you've grown up with here in Israel?
What happened October 7th to the innocent civilians, it is unacceptable to any man of faith, any man of common moral value, any common moral scale, if I may. Even many of my Muslim friends and Arab friends who are not, there's always, there's a political Islam and there's religious Islam. Those who are adhere to the religious aspect of it, who are against violence, and they are against October 7th, but of course they can't speak out, because if they speak out, then they'll be tamed as traitors by the fanatical extremists. But there is hope. Those are watching, there's hope, because there's many like me who are followers of Christ in Israel, on the Palestinian side, who are pushing for love and forgiveness and peace. But we have to be a generation that calls good, good, and evil, evil. We can't blur the line. We can't call good, evil, evil, good. We want to be that generation. Those are watching who are non-believers, be a person that calls good, good, and evil, evil, even if it might cost you everything that you know. And you know our story, Kelly. You and I, we've done a couple interviews together with the United Nations and other areas. Our church has suffered over the years. Our church was Molotov bombed 14 times during the 80s and 90s because of our stands of loving the enemy, loving your neighbors, of course, sharing the gospel with the Arabs around us. My Uncle George, you know the story. Uncle George was martyred in Mount of Olives. I was physically beaten viciously when I was 16 and a half or 17, because I had the audacity to share the gospel with a young man who came from a very large Muslim family, and my sharing with him, discipling him, bared fruit, and that fruit was him. He was convinced who Jesus Christ is. So we don't convert people. We just clarify who Jesus Christ is to people. We clarify misconceptions. And we clarify misconceptions, it leads to a ripple effect of people wanting to be drawn into a relationship with Jesus. And that's what I invite every person watching, is to explore who Jesus is, explore his message. If you don't want to convert, don't convert, that's fine. Explore who Jesus is, explore his message. And it's probably right now, it's going to be the best thing an Israeli, a Jew could have, is an Arab that believes in Jesus. Because if an Arab believes in Jesus, then he is an Arab that values all life around him.
And you know, I've heard that said before, but hearing it from you, someone who's experienced the retribution or resentment for expressing your faith in Jesus as an Arab man, you put it all on the line. Why?
It's worth it. One, we're in debt to Christ. We're here on earth temporary. There's a lot of people out there that suffered a lot more than I have and my family have. But our suffering, we've gone through the beatings, the shootings, the attacks. It's only a small bit of what others have gone through. I mean, our suffering is not even worth mentioning. But if it's worth mentioning to encourage others to have hope in the gospel, have hope in Christ, then by all means we will do it. The reason we continue to do it, brother, it's because, one, we're indebted to Christ. It's simple as that. We can sum it up in one sentence: we are indebted to Christ. Number two, it's worth it. Why is it worth it? Because the hope that I have, the hope that I carry in Christ, it's the hope that I want others to have. Again, I'm not calling for conversion. I'm just calling people to find out who Jesus is and the truth about who Christ is, whether it be Muslim, whether it be Jew, and so forth.
So let me ask you then. As you know, since in the aftermath of October 7th, Israel has gone to war with Hamas. What's your message to Palestinians, especially Palestinians living outside of the region? What's your message to the world to say, hey, there are Palestinians here who do not like what happened on October 7th, and they want to see peace because, as you stated earlier, they were neighbors to Jewish people, they were neighbors to Christians, they were neighbors to fellow Muslims.
It's a good question. It's also a tough question. Here's why.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far of America's Hope. If you'd like to see it in its entirety, just click on the link below. Thanks for watching.